By civil servants. We have a fleet of 118,000 civil servants, and apart from implementing work-from-home arrangements, we have also introduced anti-infection measures to help suppress the number of confirmed cases. And even in the face of criticisms, our civil servants have stepped up to the front in order to support various anti-epidemic tasks. There are criticisms in the community on our work, and I listen with humility. You may notice that we are continuing to improve our anti-epidemic efforts with a view to better serve members of the public and to stabilize the epidemic as quickly as possible. However, there are also unfounded allegations with ulterior motive that we must refute immediately. In relation to the reduction in manpower because of infections, let me report that as of the 14th of March, 32,200 civil servants have been infected, accounting for 17% of our establishment. However, I'm happy to report that 70% of them have now recovered and resumed work. This drop in manpower also exists in other public bodies, such as hospital authority. 20% of their staff have been infected, and basically 50% of them have now recovered and resumed their positions. As for the MTRCL, the major public transport provider in Hong Kong, 20% of their staff have been infected and 80% of them have recovered and resumed work. So I'd like to take today's opportunity to express gratitude to all staff, including civil servants, staff of hospital authority, and other members of public organizations who have joined hands in maintaining the level of service whilst fighting the epidemic. I'd like to stress that there is no dereliction in terms of supervising the work of the government in this fifth wave of the epidemic, or any slacking of our civil servants. We have been doing a good job, and that is why today I have invited the Secretary for Civil Service to give you a full account of the work of the civil servants. The Secretary is also responsible for a vaccination program. So in a moment, I will invite him to speak on vaccination, especially the vaccine rollout for elderly people. Now, Secretary Nip is in charge of the vaccination program that is under the purview of the Food and Health Bureau. This shows the united front of the government in working together across bureaus in order to stabilize the epidemic as quickly as possible. Secretary Nip. Thank you, Chief Executive. Good morning. Just now, the Chief Executive referred to the work of different sectors of the community, including the hospital authority, public bodies, and the civil service in fighting the epidemic. So today, I'd first like to report on the work of civil servants in fighting the epidemic, and second, on the latest progress of jabbing residents in care homes. The Hong Kong SAR government has the main responsibility of fighting the epidemic. The same applies to civil servants, which underpins the government. In the face of the raging fifth wave of the epidemic, we stay united and accord top priority to fighting the epidemic. Now, I'd like to speak on the anti-epidemic work of civil servants so as to address misunderstandings in the community. The fifth wave is now raging. The government is maintaining urgent and essential services, and otherwise, we are redeploying resources to focus on fighting the epidemic. For all civil servants, whether it be the professional grade, civilian grade, clerical grade, discipline services, and even retired civil servants, we all stay committed to our goal. This has been an unprecedented challenge to us. And since the start of the fifth wave, we've mobilized such a number of civil servants that far exceed the previous waves. We have colleagues taking up different positions fighting the epidemic, and there are 140,000 of them, accounting for 70% of our total establishment. We cover different areas. These areas are under the purview of different policy bureaus. These policy bureaus are responsible for decision-making, policy coordination involving 30,000 civil servants. The Food and Health Bureau, the Director of Health, and the Food and Environmental Hygiene Department are the major bodies responsible for drawing up policies and implementing policies. The Home Affairs Bureau, Home Affairs Department, Labor and Welfare Bureau, and the Social Welfare Department are bodies responsible for implementing or mounting the restriction testing declarations and providing support for those under quarantine or isolation orders. The Civil Service Bureau is responsible for the vaccination program, and the Information Services Department is responsible for disseminating information. Apart from these bureaus and departments, we also mobilize civil servants from different departments and bureaus to take up the task, and so far 40,000 civil servants have been deployed from different departments. And I would speak on a number of areas in terms of coordination. In terms of a risk-based testing approach, our work includes sewage surveillance and different RTD operations. Starting from early January to the middle of March, the government mounted 245 RTD operations with the help of 8 bureaus and 39 departments. The Home Affairs Department, Housing Department, and the Environmental Protection Department are responsible for coordinating the use of resources, etc. And the LCSD and the Rating Evaluations Department and the Census and Statistics Departments, etc., are also involved with the support of the central authorities. The Development Bureau and the ASD and other relevant works department also help build different community facilities and the subsequent management. We also have the Security Bureau responsible for managing community isolation facilities and the provision of urgent service and rescue operations, and the FSD is also taking part in it. There are also a number of discipline services involved with 69,000 staff members maintaining law and order. There are also numerous civil servants taking part in other areas of fighting the epidemic and preventing the spread of the virus and ensuring normal operation of a society. For example, in terms of maintaining a stable supply of resources and goods from the mainland and coordinating the delivery of food and other items from the mainland, dissemination of information, the drawing up of social distancing and anti-epidemic measures. The various departments, such as the Transport Housing Bureau and the CDD, the Information Services Department, and the OGO, etc., they all take part in this area. There are also 2 rounds of anti-epidemic fund rolled out during the 5th wave, and yesterday the Chief Executive also announced another round of Employment Support Scheme, ESS, to disperse subsidy, which is immediate financial relief for members of the public and enterprises affected by the restriction measures. Over 10 bureaus and 20 departments take part in this program. Although 90% of the population above the age of 12 have received 2 jabs and 80% have already received 1 jab, in light of the raging epidemic, we need to further boost the vaccination rate for the young and the old, especially vaccination for residents in care homes.
Apart from the vaccination program, the CSB also works on other fronts. We mobilize manpower to work in other areas such as the isolation of Kwaichung and testing services. We provide 1,800 people, and in other effort, we mobilize 500 volunteer workers to help the testing contractor to manage crowd. And CSB also mobilized from 12 departments, more than 450 civilian grade officers to participate in testing services. And also, in order to send the confirmed cases to hospitals, we have also sent people to Center for Health Protection to help them doing the inputting of data. At the same time, we maintain essential and critical public services, such as the boundary control, immigration services, postal services, road patrols, emergency road repair, and management of public housing estates. Many departments, because of public demand for services, are still providing the services needed, such as the TID licensing office, family service centers, and social security offices of the SWD. Many departments are still manning their counters as usual. Starting from the start of this wave up to the 22nd of March, 32,200 civil servants have come down with the virus. It's 70% of the total establishment. Some 70% of those who have been infected have now resumed duties. I would like to thank all the colleagues who have been serving the public diligently in the face of the virus and the threat of the epidemic. At this critical and difficult time, we must concentrate on fighting the epidemic, and as a result, some less essential services will be affected, and because of the decrease in manpower due to COVID, some service might be affected. Most of our colleagues have been working diligently, and they have been discharging their duties in a fair and professional manner. We have asked all civil servants to act with integrity, and we will not certainly condone those who cannot show their responsibility in this manner. We hope that we would like the service standards to be at a level that would meet public demand. But of course, in the face of criticism, we will face it with humility. We understand that our work has room for improvement, but I hope the public will not, as a result of criticism, ignore the contribution and hard work of the diligent colleagues in the civil service. At this difficult time, what's important is that we stand united in fighting the epidemic. In extending the vaccination program to elderly homes, we have set ourselves some targets, and that is before the 18th of March, we would like to reach 1,100 RCHEs and homes for the disabled to at least administer one jab for every resident. We have actually reached this goal for this stage. We have organized outreach range to at least give one jab to every resident of these homes. Of course, if suitable, the second jab and the third jab will be given to the residents as appropriate. Some 42,000 residents of these homes have been given vaccination by the outreaching teams or by taking them to the vaccination centers for the same service. So the vaccination rate is 55%, 52% for the elderly homes, and 64% for the homes for the disabled. Some 40% cannot be vaccinated now because of they are infected, or some 10% due to the rejection from their family members. we have revised the arrangement for vaccination for elderly home residents. For example, the interval between the first and second jab has been reduced from 28 days to 21 days. For those who have been infected previously, that they can get the first jab after 4 weeks of their recovery. If they've already got the first one, then after recovery, they can get the second one in 4 months. We have set ourselves the goal for the second stage, and that is with doctors that we send in our outreaching teams will, by the 15th of April, arrange for the 1,100 homes a second round or two outreach rounds, and so as to offer the first jab to those who are already not yet received one. We hope that 20,000 will be able to get the jabs, and then for another 5,000 residents who have previously been infected can get their second jab. And we all know that the mortality rate for those who have not received any vaccination is much higher than those with a jab or more. We would like to vaccinate all residents. We would like all the residents to get vaccinated if, when it's appropriate to do so, so as to protect the public and protect our healthcare system. We now have a Q&A session. If you want to raise a question, please raise your hand, tell us where you're from, and then we'll give you the mic. We have quite a number of reporters here, so please limit the number of questions to 3. The one at the back row. CE and policy secretaries. I'm from Phoenix TV. The SAR government has said that you can distribute to 50 to 60,000 packets containing the relevant goods and items for fighting the epidemic. And it said that 13%, it was said 13% of civil service have been infected, and now it stands at 17%. Would the reduction in the number of people working remaining in the civil service affect the work of the civil service in fighting the epidemic? And it seems that the quarantine centers are not well 100% utilized. Will you use these centers for other purposes in the meantime? I'll ask the Secretary for Civil Service to talk about whether our manpower deployment has been affected by the number of civil servants who have been affected.
Well, the first question relates to civil servants testing positive. And according to the Department of Health's triage arrangements, for those who can stay home for isolation, our goal for these individuals are to send them essential packs as quickly as possible. And these members of the public have household members under the same roof, and they are deemed close contacts. And likewise, we also deliver essential packs to each of them. You may recall in the beginning, large quantities were needed. In late February, early March, we were facing over 10,000 infected cases per day. And also, over 100,000 cases would be referred from the Department of Health to the Information Technology Bureau, and these were people requiring the supplies packs. That accounts for the backlog. Now, on the 6th and the 7th days of the isolation period, when these home confinees had a RAT negative test results, Many of them, I must admit, had not yet received the supplies packs before they could be discharged from the isolation order. However, the situation has improved. In relation to the packs sent to confirmed cases and their close contacts, we're able to achieve an 80% delivery rate. Now, in fact, we have some fresh figures. As of last night, in fact, over the past 5 days, we were able to achieve 103% of delivery. In other words, every day, referrals from the Department of Health would be made, and we're able to achieve 100% of delivery of these packs, subject to any surge in the number of cases and subject to any serious bottlenecks occurring in the DH referral process. I am confident that our system of dispatching essential packs is effective. However, I'm urging my colleagues to see if the whole procedure of referral can be streamlined so that we can meet this target, and that is, for each confirmed case, be it a PCR test confirmed case or a confirmed case verified upon self-reporting of an RAT positive result, he would be able to receive an essential pack if he observes home isolation. We'll continue to monitor the situation and make improvements. The third question relates to quarantine centers. I remember three of the 5 centers are hotels, 2 are recreation or outdoor recreation clubs. Earlier, for close contacts, we required them to leave their dwellings to observe a quarantine. However, the Center for Health Protection revised its policy on the 8th of February. For close contacts, or what we used to call secondary close contacts or sub-close contacts, they could observe quarantine at home. Likewise, the essential packs would be delivered to their homes. Because of the large numbers of home confinees, we no longer required the close contacts to be sent to quarantine centers. However, after the 8th of February, we still keep these quarantine centers because there is always a need for them. But like you said, it's underutilized. We have 800 units available and only 2 or 3% have been used. So earlier, we agreed that we could convert some of the facilities. Of course, the 3 hotels could be easily converted into, for example, an isolation facility, or say if we have more arrivals from overseas, these hotels could be designated quarantine hotels for them. I will perhaps the Department of Health will speak on the matter in due course. About the other question, Mr. Nip, yes, indeed, we have more civil servants getting infected, and as of the 14th of March, 17% of civil servants have been infected. However, the situation is now easing, and the figures by and large reflect the epidemic situation. We, of course, attach great importance to protecting our colleagues. First of all, 99% of civil servants have received 1 jab, and 96% of them already received 2 jabs. In fact, at the end of March, we will be requiring all civil servants to receive at least 2 jabs before they're allowed inside any government buildings. So that's the first line of protection. Secondly, depending on their work environment, we'll implement measures to make sure they're aware of the personal hygiene and protection measures, and we also provide the necessary work equipment including PPEs to make sure they're protected. And point number 4, they should be aware of their health condition, and if they get infected, they should avoid going back to the office. All these are safeguards. As for the place of work, cleansing and disinfection will be carried out, and there are also other arrangements to avoid the crowding, such as an A-B team arrangement to avoid a cross-infection. Next question. This reporter at the back row. I'm from Cable. About the $10,000 temporary unemployment relief, why aren't employees of hair salons be included? Because hair salons are the premises ordered by the government to suspend operations. So why can't the employees be included? Now, this morning, Dr. Tony Cole commented that there is no division of labor between the mainland medical support team and Hong Kong healthcare personnel. May I understand why? Because they just arrived in Hong Kong and perhaps they are not familiar with the work here. Perhaps they should start with tasks entailing a lower risk before they further move up and take up more work. The third question is that it is rumored that the anti-epidemic pack would be dispatched to everyone in Hong Kong. Is it true? When will this be done? Now, Chief Executive just admitted that there was a backlog in terms of dispatching the packs. Now, if this happens across the territory, will a similar backlog happen? And also, Professor Sophia Chan, well, I just heard you cough a little bit. I just want to know if you're well. Right, first question. We announced 2 employment support measures. You asked about the measure announced under AEF 6.0, and that is a temporary unemployment relief. Yesterday afternoon, head of PICO already gave a detailed account to the media in relation to this scheme. Basically, this scheme seeks to support employees who were temporarily out of job because of the restriction measures. You may recall, starting from the 7th of January, we introduced restriction measures and ordered some of the premises to close. Over 10 types of premises, including beauty parlors, gym centers, etc., and they have been closed they have been closed since the 7th of January, and it is expected that the suspension will go on until the 20th of April. Hair salons were included in the list of premises to suspend their operation at a later stage, and in fact earlier we already lifted the restriction. So in terms of the period of restricted operation, they only suffered 28 days. That is in relation to temporary unemployment relief scheme. Eligible applicants must be continuously unemployed for at least 30 days immediately before application, and it is difficult, therefore, to include employees of hair salons. However, in terms of rehiring these employees, the employment support scheme should apply. I don't suppose hair salons are major franchises, and these smaller enterprises will benefit from the ESS 2022. In May, June, July, each employee will receive a subsidy of $8,000 each. And about the mainland medical support team, Professor Chan can speak on it.
Let me now take the third question. During this period, the SAR government has handed out a lot of essential anti-epidemic packs. Some have been sent to homes where someone is put under isolation or some close contacts are being quarantined. We have distributed since the beginning of March hundreds of thousands of packs. At the same time, HAD has also handed out RAT kits, some 4 million in the community, mainly to buildings where the sewage test has turned positive and the case load is high. So the packs are given to the cleaning workers, the security staff, and sometimes even to residents to encourage them to do RAT tests more often so that they know they've been infected or not. Also, we have also, through various means, distributed supplies from the central government in the community, including hundreds of thousands of proprietary Chinese medicines. Some have been given to the HA's CMP clinics, and some have been distributed through community organizations. And there's an alliance to fight the epidemic in the community, and we have secured their cooperation in helping us distributing the packs. So this has been done very systematically, because individually these methods cannot reach everyone in the community. So we are now working on a program to ensure that we have better coverage, and we can do it more systematically, because these are medical supplies. So I've touched on some of them: essential packs, Chinese proprietary medicines, and information package to our citizens, so that everyone is equipped with the knowledge and everyone is provided with essential supplies. But your observation is right. If we are to do this in the whole community, it will be a major operation. We need to mobilize people and organizations in the community to help us do this. Last night, together with Secretary for Commerce and Economic Development, who is responsible for supplies, and also SHA, talked to more than 100 community leaders, including the alliance they have talked about, and also some NGOs serving ethnic minorities, religious bodies, and major welfare organizations. We had a video conference, and we all agree that everyone should chip in distributing the essential supplies. This will be this program will be carried out in due course. Secretary for Food and Health, the mainland medical team is a team with quality and dedication. This morning, Dr. Koh and I talk about how the team has been doing their job in the Asia World Expo facility. This will take some time to develop. This is a process, and we are grateful that the central government has lent us a helping hand in this difficult time. But we have to bear in mind that in terms of treatment of patient, the objectives concerned and the procedures involved are similar, whether we look at Hong Kong or the mainland. And as Dr. Koh has rightly pointed out this morning, so actually, whether there's division of labor or not, we are talking about collaboration. We are talking about whole person, whole patient treatment, although different processes might be involved. For newly arrived healthcare workers, they may have some familiarizations to do in terms of the computer system, the record system, they may need some time to cooperate, to work with their local counterparts, and then they can enter a new phase of cooperation accordingly. We're not just talking about the procedure, but also the nursing, the treatment, the assessment of the patient's condition. So all these will be covered in this evolving process. Dr. Koh has said that the collaboration has been working well, and everyone is committed in moving forward, and it's hoped that with the assistance rendered by the mainland team, we will be able to have a higher capacity to deal with confirmed cases at AWE.
Speak louder, please. Sorry.
Okay. Good morning. So, question from SCMP. So, we would like to ask, what is the occupancy rate of the community isolation facilities converted from the hotels? How much the government is paying monthly to these hotels? And there have been complaints from long-stay hotel tenants that they were forced to move out within 2 weeks of notice period. Is there a need to secure these hotels' room given a low number of infections recorded recently? And what will the government do to help these long-stay tenants? And second, does the government, does the city has achieved herd immunity, yet given the high level of infections and also vaccination rates? And third, referring to the letter to the business community by Mr. Slam yesterday, why there is a need to send the letter now, and does it come a little bit too late? Thank you.
I will have to defer to the Secretary for Food and Health to answer your question about herd immunity. Now, on the situation of hotels which have joined the scheme to perform the role of a community isolation facility. You may remember that I had a webinar with the hotel industry and the Hotel Federation to appeal to their support to transform some of their hotels into a CIF. And that took place in February, when we were very short of community isolation facilities, when we did not know how bad the situation could be in terms of confirmed cases. So at that point in time, we were pretty desperate to get more hotels or more hotel rooms to provide the needed isolation facility for the people. And I have to say that that meeting has been most productive and fruitful. We have quite a number of hotel owners who come forward to agree that they are happy to perform this role. But the problem is not every hotel is suitable. We have to examine and inspect the hotel in terms of its ventilation system and its proximity to other residential blocks and so on. So right now, I think we have engaged about 30, maybe 30 hotels, but not all of them are on board yet, exactly because they have to do some decanting, as you have mentioned, because some hotels are occupied by long-term customers. So they are not tourists per se, but they are living in a hotel as a sort of residence. So if a hotel has joined the scheme, then they have to use the whole hotel. We cannot accept a situation where there are infected customers and non-infected people living in the same hotel. So some hotels have taken a bit of time, and up till now they have not been turned into a community isolation facility yet. Is to ensure that they could take the necessary arrangements to transfer their long-term tenants to another hotel of their chain, because most of them joining are not single hotel owners. They have a chain of hotels. And I was told that actually the best way that they have done is to transfer them to a more superior hotel, that is upgrading their accommodation status in order to get more amicable sort of arrangement with their customers. I have not received any complaints from the hotels or from the hotel tenants, but if there are, we will tell the hotel to do better, to provide a better arrangement for the existing tenants so as to facilitate them to join the scheme. I cannot give you the details of our contractual arrangement with the hotels. But again, I want to thank hotels. It's not an easy task to let a commercial hotel to operate as a community isolation facility. You remember at the earlier stage, they are being used as quarantine hotel. Quarantine hotels are for people who are not yet infected, but they need to be quarantined in order to ensure that they are not bringing the virus into the community. But a community isolation facility hotel is a hotel which will take in infected persons. So at the beginning, there were some anxiety and reluctance until I met with them and explained the very dire situation and appealed to their corporate responsibility, and many have come forward. And I can tell you that even their staff are very cooperative. Initially, they said that, Mrs. Lam, you could take over my hotel, but you provide your own staff to man the hotel. So we said that, okay, if that's the case, then you are not providing us with full service. It's just a hardware of the hotel. But I can tell you now, every participating hotel in this scheme is giving us full service. Not a single hotel has asked us to run the hotel for them, except putting in the management people and the people to make sure the security arrangements are fine, that the hotel isolatees will not get out of the hotel without our scrutiny. So that is the point about hotel. The second, your inquiry is about my letter. Now let me give you a bit of background. In Hong Kong, being a very international city, we have two major communities that the government will continuously engage with, especially since I assumed office as the chief executive. 2 days ago, in response to, again, an English question, I said, nobody attaches more importance to Hong Kong's international status. Not international financial center status, but international status than myself as a chief executive, because I know it is how very important for Hong Kong to succeed and survive as an international city, that we have to be connected with the outside world, we have to be attractive to overseas and mainland business community to encourage them to invest in Hong Kong. We have to attract far more talents from overseas and mainland to come to work in Hong Kong. So there are two important communities. One is our consular community. We are one of the few Chinese cities that have so many presence of CGs in Hong Kong. The other is the business community. So we have a committee called the IBC, the International Business Committee, which is chaired by the CS for Administration, which means that during my 4.5 years as a Chief Secretary for Administration, I've been meeting these business chambers heads very often to tell them the Hong Kong situation and to get their feedback. And so since the beginning of this fight against the epidemic, I have been sending monthly reports, personally signed off monthly reports to these two very important communities every month, because somehow most of the news are now reported in Chinese or Cantonese. So our two expatriate community may not get the first-hand information about the work of the Hong Kong SAR government. So on a non-stop basis, I've been sending them monthly reports to tell them the government's work in fighting the epidemic. And on the 28th of February, I sent them my 24th report, because this fight has gone on for 2 years. And as a result of that, partly because of the current situation and worries about school closure and border controls, many of the recipients of my 24th report sent me letters as a feedback. Okay? And so I thought that since there is a lot of common ground amongst the letters sent to me, I may as well give them a further supplementary piece of information through a letter to the same community, that is members of the IBC, and what we call the heads of post. Heads of post refer to the consul generals as well as the head of a number of international organizations in Hong Kong. And so that is the purpose of my letter, and my letter actually recaps all the things that I've said in public, especially on this occasion. But to give them a consolidated picture is something that I find it is relevant and it may be regarded as useful. And actually, from the yesterday's afternoon, I've been given a lot of feedback that they are very grateful for the Chief Executive's letter. They find it most informative and encouraging, but they also look forward to more concrete measures to be announced in due course. So it is not a question of whether this is done fast enough or too late. This is part of my ongoing work as a Chief Executive to engage with important communities in Hong Kong. Professor Chen.
Oh, thank you, Chief Executive. Thank you for your question on herd immunity. I think how one can achieve immunity depends on basically a few things. First is infection, and second is vaccination. So whether Hong Kong has achieved herd immunity in totality remain a question that we need to look into through more scientific data, especially local scientific data. The Food and Health Bureau, in fact, have a commissioned study in the very beginning of the epidemic on looking into the issue of immunity. And so we have funded a serology study, a population-based serology study. So we need to look more into the data. And secondly, as I've said, natural infection is one, but vaccination is another. And you may already have heard from Patrick that about our vaccination rate in the community. But the vaccination rate of our elders in the community remain to be heightened, as you know, and we are working very hard on improving the vaccination rate of this particular group of people. So whether the entire society has achieved herd immunity remain a question that we need to look more into our scientific data. Thank you.
好，對唔住，因為記者嘅提問。
Next question.
你好，点新闻记者。
I'm from Dot News, and then at the AWE, it will be managed by the HA and SWD, and it takes collective work from different departments to work it out, the programs. How would the SAL government ensure coordination? And people have a so-called epidemic fatigue. How are you going to encourage the frontline healthcare workers to remain dedicated and diligent? And more than 5,000 people have died from the epidemic. Behind them, there are 5,000 bereaved families, whether we're talking about children, victims, or elderly patients. They may suffer psychological impact and sufferings. What kind of support will be provided to these families? In terms of fighting the epidemic, in the process, we need the departments to work together. We cannot say that it's a public health issue and therefore it's the job for the FHB, the Department of Health, and the Hospital Authority alone. The epidemic is too serious for this to be true. Since the start of the latest wave, I have been chairing a steering group, a command center, so to speak, on how to fight the epidemic, because we are talking about coordination of not just the departments, but also the actions to be taken, and also how we can flexibly deploy manpower at the front line. And this command center will do exactly that. You talk about AWE and the situation there. At the early stage, we have designated 2 parts because it's an exhibition center. There are many halls. So there are many halls as a matter of the architectural design. So the HA established community treatment center so that patients with mild symptoms will be accommodated in the treatment center, and then later the SWD converted some other space into a quarantine center. Why does the SWD need a quarantine center? In the past, if there's a confirmed case in an elderly home, or if a staff of an elderly home gets infected, the Food and Health or the Center for Health Protection would identify who would be the close contacts, and the SWD would transfer the close contacts to this SWD facility at AWE. That's the quarantine center run by the SWD to make sure that they are not infected by the patients there. But now some adjustments have been made by SWD. The facility would take in elderly confirmed cases with mild symptoms. As both facilities are located at AWE, but SWD is not a healthcare organization, and therefore they need some resources, and those are provided by the hospital authority. So that's the kind of division of labor between the two. We have division of labor and in other areas, and we also have coordination. We cannot have every party doing the same thing and overlapping one another, because some departments do have expertise in some areas, some are more experienced in one area than other. We have been fighting the epidemic for some 2 years now. Many people are facing the so-called fatigue problem, but I can tell you that I am not suffering from this problem. Although my term will expire in just over 3 months, but every day I maintain my spirit up in fighting the epidemic. I don't feel any fatigue, and I have no such feeling that would affect my work. So that's why I've been here talking to you about the epidemic situation in Hong Kong on a daily basis. So whether we are talking about healthcare workers, the cleaning workers, the security staff working at the front line, well, we care for them all. We do this by providing the necessary protection gear, the PPE, whether we are talking about face masks, gowns, or many people are now doing RAT. We provide them with test kits. We provide all of these. We are using some 2 million kits every day. That's why I'm saying that we are protecting our frontline workers. And also we provide a special allowance for those fighting the epidemic at the very front. For those who are working at more riskier positions, we give them a closed loop work environment. We provide hotels in this system, and also dedicated vehicle fleet to ply between their hotels and the workplaces. Either it's because of COVID or otherwise, we are saddened by the passing of so many people, and we would like to offer our condolences to their families. We have been working on aftercare, for example, on the facilitation of early retrieval of their beloved bodies for early funeral services. And we have increased the columbarium capacity, the crematorial capacity to more 300 places. And we offer a hotline to provide the necessary support and counseling. That's the end of today's press conference. See you tomorrow at 11 a.m. tomorrow.